A mother and her 3 young children were walking home from synagogue on Saturday afternoon in Brooklyn, heading to a relative's house. It was a route they had taken many times. As they crossed Ocean Parkway, an Audi entered the intersection at a speed that no one had a chance to register in time. Within seconds, the car struck the family. In that instant, 3 of them were killed, and a 4th one lay critically injured. The driver of the Audi would need to be pulled from her vehicle by emergency responders. Caught by surprise, the responders were met with a full-on verbal assault that instantly revealed the type of person they were dealing with. Her name was Miriam Yarimi. Online, she was known for polished photos, luxury trips, and a web business brand that made her life look organized and under control. But that persona would be the first thing to fall apart once people realized who she really was, and how much had already gone wrong before that moment. Welcome back to Crime A to Z, where we detail cases and criminals from their very beginning until well after other reporting ends. Today, we're diving into the case involving the killings of the Sada family. It's a case that can only be described as tragic. As the details unfold, it won't take you long to understand why this case is guaranteed to leave you with strong feelings. Join us as we explore how 2 worlds collided, both tragically and literally, and how an online persona can hide an entirely different reality. And before we dive into today's case, we just want to give you a quick heads up that we now have A to Z channel memberships. And, by special request, merch. Nothing's changing for regular viewing. But since we have the best, most supportive community out there, we wanted to give anyone who might be interested a few extra ways to engage, support the channel, and even give us more opportunities to interact with you. We tried to not be cringy, but we did geek out just a little. Learn more by clicking join. Oh, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you end up liking this video. Let's go. Miriam Yarimi was driving her 2023 Audi A3 north on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, New York. She was going fast. Very fast. The speed limit was 25 miles per hour, and several locals said that even 25 felt too fast on that stretch. Miriam was not doing 25. She was traveling 68 miles per hour. Even on its own, her speed in that pedestrian-heavy area was terrifying, but that was only part of her rampage. In the moments before the crash, surveillance cameras along Ocean Parkway captured Miriam heading northbound. As she moved through Midwood, video shows her actively using her cell phone while driving. Likewise, witnesses reported that she appeared to be recording selfie videos, describing that she had her phone in her hand and was interacting with it while in motion. A block before the fatal crash, she blew through a steady red light, captured on surveillance footage and confirmed by investigators. She didn't hesitate. She didn't slow down. Didn't brake. She continued through the red light as if the signal was green. As she approached the intersection of Ocean Parkway and Quentin Road, the Audi's black box data indicated that she had the accelerator pressed to the floor at full throttle and was moving at that 68 miles per hour. She didn't brake, swerve, or even lift her foot off the accelerator. A silver Toyota Camry with a TLC, or Taxi, Limousine, and Commission license plate was traveling westbound. It was attempting to make a right turn onto Ocean Parkway as Miriam was traveling northbound on Ocean. The Audi barreled into the intersection, crashing into and tearing off the rear end of the Camry. The 63-year-old driver of the Camry had been Ubering a mother and her 3 children. The force of the collision pushed the Camry aside as the Audi continued forward, plowing straight into the crosswalk where a mother and her 3 children were legally crossing with the signal. Miriam's Audi struck the family with catastrophic force, then continued on and began flipping. It ended up traveling a total of 130 feet. The family she mowed down included 34-year-old Natasha Sada, a British-born mother of 5 who grew up in the Mill Hill area of London, her 8-year-old daughter, Diana, her 5-year-old daughter, Deborah, and her 4-year-old son, Philip. Natasha and her children had just left synagogue and were walking through Midwood to a relative's home. The family can be seen walking in surveillance footage, with the son, Philip, casually trailing behind his mother and sisters. They reached the intersection at Ocean Parkway and Quentin Road. Once the crossing signal cleared them to proceed, the family held hands and proceeded into the crosswalk, heading to their destination. The crash happened in an instant. Onlookers were stunned. One witness reported that it sounded like an earthquake.
It's like an earthquake. It went on for a good 30 seconds. It must have been the car was rolling over.
It felt like the world stopped for that second until everyone was processing what was going on.
Another witness who saw the accident unfold described to a reporter what she saw.
My dad is an EMT, so he came here first. I just see him sprinting down the block. See that car over there just smashed in the back, and that car over there flipped over, and people on the floor just hit, very obviously hit.
Others quickly called 911 to report the horrifying accident. Emergency responders were on the scene within 2 minutes. When they arrived, it was clear right away how severe the impact was. Witnesses described how the car came out of nowhere and never slowed down. The entire intersection was filled with debris. Paramedics immediately began administering CPR to the family. They worked quickly. But for Natasha, Diana, and little Deborah, it would not be enough. They could not be saved. 4-year-old Philip was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He had skull fractures, trauma to his head resulting in brain bleeding, and damage severe enough that one of his kidneys had to be removed. He was placed into a medically induced coma as medical staff fought to save his life. Back at the scene, it was almost too much to take in. One first responder broke down in tears. A neighbor who lived across the street from the Sada family remembered them.
The kids would always say good morning to strangers, because that's the way she brought them up. Great person.
But the justifiable grieving at the scene for the senseless loss of life was nothing compared to the coming grief that the father of the family would soon face. Sidney Sada had stayed home to watch the couple's baby. He now faced the unimaginable loss of his wife and 2 daughters, and the critical injury of his young son. Meanwhile, firefighters were working to extricate Miriam from her car. As they worked to pull her free, instead of being contrite, remorseful, or even scared, she instead screamed, cursed, and barked demands at them. To one stretcher-bearing firefighter, she cried out, "You bitch," as he approached. She then snapped, "Get out of my way, you bitch," followed by, "Fuck you." She also yelled variations of, "What the fuck is taking so long? Motherfucker, get me the fuck out of here." And no, you wait a minute. You fucking wait a minute. When EMTs placed her on a gurney, she murmured that she had the devil in her eyes, and that she was possessed. She also argued, "Show me proof. I didn't hurt anybody. Why am I being arrested?" At the hospital, Miriam refused to take a breathalyzer test and told officers that she had not hurt anyone. She also told them that people are out to get me, and I need a whole workup to get whatever is in my body out of it. Despite all the destruction she had caused, Miriam herself had only suffered minor injuries. She was taken to a local hospital, then ultimately to Bellevue, the city's primary psychiatric evaluation center, where she was placed in the hospital's prison ward to undergo a mental health assessment. In addition to the devastating loss of the 3 Sada family members, a total of 9 people were injured during the collision. And while the driver and the passengers in that Uber-driven Camry are regularly reported as having only suffered minor injuries, the impact on their lives was devastating. One of the children from that vehicle was later interviewed.
I have back pain a lot.
What are your nightmares?
Like us getting in the car and getting in a car crash again. My little brother, they gave him a cast to wear. And my mom, she has depression a lot. And my little sister, her head was hurting a lot.
The investigation moved quickly. Detectives began pulling surveillance footage from along Ocean Parkway and nearby intersections, including the block where Miriam had already driven through the steady red light without braking. That video and other clips showed her Audi moving at a speed that stood out sharply from surrounding traffic. It also showed that she never slowed as she approached the intersection of the crash. Almost immediately into the investigation, law enforcement would learn who Miriam Yarimi was, both online and behind the wheel. She grew up on East 12th Street in Brooklyn, one of 6 children raised by a single mother in a religious community. One friend from her youth described her as nerdy and deeply immersed in the synagogue environment, although few felt that she ever fully fit the mold. Miriam had been married, and the couple had 1 child together. Online, Miriam was a self-proclaimed influencer and wig maker, leaning into the business strongly enough that she had a custom license plate made for her Audi, which read, "Wig Maker."
Guys, I just got my new license plate. It's official. I'm officially a wig maker by law. Ah! Oh my God! Looks so good! Wig maker, hit me up! Oh my God, just pull me over. Like, get at me. Look at this, wig maker. If you see this license plate, say hi.
She would later change that plate to wigmaker with an 8. Her social media presence showed a modest following. There, she exuded success promoting her wig work and showcasing a seemingly luxurious lifestyle, including cruises, vacation photos, and nights out on the town. But there was another part of her history, one that had nothing to do with work or business. In the years before the crash, Miriam had filed or attempted to file several complaints and lawsuits against police departments alleging harassment and mistreatment. One of those cases centered on her allegation that an NYPD officer sexually assaulted her when she was underage, an allegation she later pursued through a civil lawsuit, which resulted in a $2 million settlement paid to her. According to a friend of Miriam's from when they were younger, the lawsuit stemmed from what Miriam, who was just 14 years old at the time and legally too young to consent, described to her as an affair with the married officer. The friend said that, devastated by the breakup, Miriam shaved her head. Miriam celebrated this settlement victory online, urging others to never give up on their own battles. Afterward, she made several large purchases, including a Porsche and the Audi she drove on the day of the crash. But that victory was one of what appeared to be very few. Her past was more often marked by lawsuits that never went anywhere, police complaints that fizzled out, and recurring contact with authorities that raised questions about her stability. And the claim that she made at the scene of the crash about the CIA following her was also familiar to police, having heard that from her in the past. One of her neighbors named Angie recalled similar claims she had made.
Angie tells me she's heard them before. Yarimi telling her their upstairs neighbor worked for the same federal agency.
CIA, that she is a spy from that.
What did you think?
That's not true.
And there were other concerning claims.
Now, another neighbor tells me at one point Yarimi approached him, begging him to help him that her daughter had been kidnapped. That wasn't true. He tells me the next day it was as if nothing happened.
At one point, police were sent to her home for a welfare check, responding to concerns about her behavior. They arrived, and Miriam recorded the interaction on her phone.
I'm not going anywhere. This is my bed. You barged into my home without my knowledge, without a warrant, without even a reason to why you're here, without a validating excuse as to what the phone call was even about.
Come on, get out of bed.
Look. Look, I'm not even resisting. Look.
In one particular post, Miriam showed a video of what she said was a surveillance camera that was spying on her in her home. She wrote, "I need to say something clearly and publicly. For months, I said I was being watched. I said something was off. I said I didn't feel safe. And I was made to feel crazy for it. Tonight, at 11:28 p.m., I found a hidden camera inside the vent of my bathroom. I have photo and video proof. It's been confirmed. I filed a report. So for anyone who doubted me, questioned me, whispered about me, or stood by silently while I broke down trying to explain what I felt, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't paranoid." She also posted about an encounter she had with a neighbor, complete with her attacking him with a hammer just days before the fatal car crash. She started by describing an assault that she claimed the neighbor had made on her and her daughter, an assault that, according to authorities and those who knew her, never happened. She then claimed that she grabbed a hammer, ran upstairs, and lost it on them. Together, her history painted a far more complicated picture than the persona she projected online, one that raised legitimate concerns about her mental health. But none of it was as noteworthy as her driving history. The speeding, red light running, disregard for traffic laws that resulted in the fatal crash wasn't her first brush with reckless driving. In just the 2 years since she had purchased her Audi, she had received at least 98 traffic violations. Some reports cite as many as 108. That averages out to over 1 violation every week for 2 years, including at least 21 speeding violations, including 18 instances of speeding in a school zone in 2024 alone, at least 5 red light citations, and multiple failure to yields. The citations added up to more than $10,000 in fines, and given that she had paid nearly $9,000 of them, it was clear she wasn't in the dark about her mounting violations. Her pattern of reckless driving made her actions on Ocean Parkway feel less like an anomaly and more like the inevitable result of a record no one had ever managed to slow down. But they had tried. At the time of the fatal accident, Miriam's license was actually suspended, but that clearly was not enough of a deterrent to keep Miriam from behind the wheel. The news of the devastating crash spread through the community within hours. The bodies of Natasha, Diana, and Deborah Sada were promptly flown to Israel so that the funeral could be held the following day, honoring the Jewish custom of laying a person to rest as soon as possible. At the funeral, hundreds gathered to mourn as the three were laid to rest side by side. Likewise, in Orain Park in Brooklyn, supporters gathered to honor the family's loss, a turnout so large it spilled into the surrounding streets. Local leaders and safety advocates issued public statements urging the city to address long-standing concerns about that stretch of Ocean Parkway. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement had a clear picture of what had happened, but they needed to understand the why, and especially whether Miriam's behavior leading up to the impact was accidental, impaired, intentional, or tied to some type of mental disturbance. They seized Miriam's phone, ordered toxicology tests, pulled traffic and surveillance footage, and interviewed witnesses. They even collected her car's black box information, which showed no indication of any mechanical failure. So, by the time Miriam was moved from Bellevue to the 19th Precinct for processing and arraignment, detectives had a detailed understanding of the sequence of events. There is no public record indicating she was formally cleared of any psychological concerns, but the case procedurally proceeded as if she were. She was arrested, transferred into the general jail population, and formally charged with 3 counts of second-degree manslaughter, 3 counts of criminally negligent homicide, and 4 counts of second-degree assault. With Miriam no longer under psych evaluation, investigators now needed to establish her responsibility and build a case that supported the charges. With a filter nowhere in sight, Miriam helped them out. Detectives were already confident given her driving history, but Miriam ended up strengthening their case even further. From jail, she made hundreds of phone calls, mostly to her mother and her ex-husband. In many of them, she showed little regard for anyone other than herself and spoke with a clear sense of entitlement. In one call, when her ex-husband suggested that she apologize for killing the family and injuring others, including several children, she replied, "Why should I apologize? I'm just as much of a victim as they are." At another time, she told him, "You always know how to contact people to get out of trouble. Why can't you contact the judge to get me out?" The following day, she asked him, "Why isn't the Jewish community helping me?" On another call, she made her questionable mental state sound like a tactic when she stated, "I'm playing the games. I could also pretend, I could also, put on a show. Like, why don't I just pretend I'm schizophrenic?" She went on to say that she was being framed, despite the extensive physical evidence that clearly outlined her actions. And if Miriam had not enraged enough people with her statements up until that point, she had more. This time, in an attempt to protect her money. In a series of recorded calls in late October, she brought up the wrongful death civil lawsuit expected to be filed by the Sada family. She discussed the possibility of moving her money to South America to avoid any judgments that may be entered against her. She also floated the idea of countersuing the Uber driver that she hit. According to the DA's office, those statements demonstrated that she showed no signs of remorse whatsoever. Once the case reached court, the prosecution laid out just how severe the crash had been. The district attorney stated, "In my over 25 years as a prosecutor in Brooklyn, this still remains one of the worst collisions that I've ever seen on a New York City street." Prosecutors were prepared to outline everything. How Miriam was effectively operating a multi-ton vehicle as a weapon. How she tore down the street at high speed, blew through red lights, held her phone up to use the video feature while driving, kept the gas pedal pressed to the floor, and did all of it with a suspended license after racking up nearly 100 violations. But they never got the chance to present any of it at trial. Instead, Miriam accepted a deal, a reduced charge of 1 count of second-degree manslaughter. She entered a guilty plea in court, moving the case directly to sentencing. At sentencing, Miriam addressed the judge.
I want to begin by apologizing to the victim's family. There's a lot of sorrow and pain, remorse, regret I feel in my heart. responsibility for my actions. And I hope and pray that my guilty plea, as well as my sentencing here today, will provide some degree of closure to the victims and their family members for all of the pain and suffering that my actions have caused. And also spare them from any further emotional toll that a trial in this case may have caused. Finally, I'd like to thank Judge Chung for his gracious offer here. And I'll have to deal with this for the rest of my life. I think that's the punishment in itself. And I think about the victims every day. It's not a day that goes by where I don't think about what I feel, what I did, what happened. And I hope that the families can heal in due time, and we can all pray that everyone is okay at the end. Thank you, Your Honor.
Few, if any, were buying it. The Sada family's attorney noted,
She had originally stated, why should I apologize? I'm the victim over here. All of a sudden today, for the first time, there's tears and there's apology.
but Miriam's attorney disagreed.
Those words were genuine and heartfelt, and I think that that's important.
The judge sentenced Miriam Yarimi to 3 to 9 years. That means that she is required to serve at least 3 of those years, but can be held for up to 9. The Brooklyn DA's office made it clear that they disagreed with the outcome. They had pushed for a trial and recommended a 5 to 15-year range. But once Miriam pled guilty under the reduced charge plea, the judge was legally required to sentence within the narrower 3 to 9-year window. Many, including the Sada family, were outraged. They felt that Miriam got a slap on the wrist. The notion that she may serve just 3 years for the violent and preventable death of a mother and her 2 young children was egregious.
This sends a clear message that reckless driving is not so bad. She's been driving recklessly for a long, long time. She did it here. She got a minimum sentence. And I think this doesn't send any message at all other than a lenient message.
The Sayada family not in court today and not happy with the fact that Yarimi could serve as little as 3 years in prison for taking the lives of 3 people.
They are quite disappointed, or outraged would probably be a better word. Even the maximum sentence probably would not be sufficient in this case.
But the defense claimed otherwise.
People have stories. Each one of us has a history, and we should all be judged not based on our worst moments, not even based on our best, but we should be judged as a whole. And I think that's what the judge did over here, and that's why the offer was made as it was.
Four-year-old Philip Sada remained in the hospital for about 6 weeks before he was reported to have made what was described as a miraculous recovery. His father stood alongside friends, relatives, and neighbors in a bittersweet welcome home once Philip was released. No public reporting has detailed his long-term medical needs, but as of the last public report in May of 2025, he was home and recovering. The tragic crash reignited calls for legislative action. Street safety advocates have been pushing a super speeder bill that would require installing speed-limiting devices in the cars of drivers with histories like Miriam's. The bill has faced pushback, and as of the latest updates, it still has not passed in the state assembly. Miriam Yarimi is serving her 3 to 9 year sentence in a New York state prison. As of the making of this video, Miriam's Instagram account is still active with roughly 16,000 followers. The comment section, however, has shifted almost entirely to trolling and openly mocking her. Under the terms of her plea deal, Miriam will become eligible for parole after serving 3 years. Many believe that given the facts brought about during the investigation, particularly the statements from her jailhouse calls, she is likely to be denied parole and therefore serve longer than the 3-year minimum. With her only having been sentenced last month, there has not yet been any public news regarding her life behind bars. But something tells us that whatever consequences she escaped out here, she won't escape behind bars. Out here, people mock her in comments. In there, people don't need a comment section. We hope this video did justice to the Sada family and their tremendous loss. In 9 years, possibly less, when Miriam Yarimi will almost certainly be released, A child will have grown up without a mother, a husband without his wife, and a 13-year-old will still be living with the trauma of the crash and the loss of his mother. And when that day comes, what weight will Miriam Yarimi be carrying? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and please remember to hit like and subscribe if you like how we presented this case. We appreciate you.